Thanksgiving's always been weird for my family. Not in a burn the turkey and laugh about it way. More like, someone always storms off halfway through dessert, someone else ends up crying in the bathroom, and no one ever talks about it the next day. Still, every year I showed up, hoping this time would be different. Maybe we'd be, I don't know, a normal family? I'm Jordan, 29. I live about 6 hours away from my hometown, where my parents and 2 siblings still live. I've got a steady job in real estate finance, nothing glamorous, but I've been lucky enough to do well for myself. Bought my first property at 26, paid off my car, that kind of thing. I'm not flashy, not loud, not the kind of guy who brags. If anything, I try to keep a low profile around my family. They've never reacted well to my successes. My parents are the type who talk a big game about family unity, but have this twisted scoreboard in their heads. Like, my older sister Kayla can do no wrong, even when she borrowed $5,000 from me 2 years ago and forgot to pay me back. My younger brother Tyler is the golden retriever of the family, screws up constantly, but they think it's cute. I'm the middle kid, which means I get overlooked until they need something. Funny how that works. A few years ago, when our parents were going through some financial trouble, I quietly stepped in and started covering part of the mortgage on the family home. I never made a big deal about it, didn't want to embarrass them or turn it into a power play. I just saw it as doing what any decent son would do. It wasn't even a huge burden for me. The property's been in the family since my grandparents' time, and I didn't want to see it go into foreclosure. I just set up automatic payments and let them think it was being handled some other way. Only a few people knew, my cousin Sarah, because she was with me the day I called the bank and arranged it, and Kayla, who saw a confirmation email once when she used my laptop without asking. Anyway, fast forward to this year. I hadn't planned on going home for Thanksgiving. Work was hectic, and honestly, the thought of spending 3 days tiptoeing around family landmines didn't exactly thrill me. But a week before the holiday, Sarah called me. "You should come," she said. "I feel like, I don't know, something's weird this year. They've been talking about you a lot." Like, in a shady way. I frowned. "What do you mean?" "They were over at Aunt Marlene's last weekend," she said. "Kayla was complaining that you always act like you're above everyone. Your mom didn't say much, but she didn't defend you either. Tyler made some joke about you showing up in a Tesla with a superiority complex. It just felt off. That stung, but not because I hadn't heard it before. It stung because I'd done so much for them quietly, and somehow that made me the arrogant one. I hadn't even told them about my new apartment or that I'd just landed a major client. I wasn't rubbing anything in their faces. If anything, I was keeping my distance to avoid more drama. Still, something about Sarah's tone stuck with me. I figured maybe this year I'd surprise them. Show up, play nice, bring a bottle of wine, smile through the passive-aggressive comments. Maybe it'd be better than I expected. So I packed a small bag Wednesday night, left early Thursday morning, and made the 6-hour drive back to my hometown. The highway was quiet, and I had my favorite playlist queued up. I even stopped at this bakery near the state line to pick up a pecan pie, my dad's favorite. I was nervous, sure, but also kind of hopeful. I imagined knocking on the door, the look of surprise on their faces, the awkward laugh from my mom, and the way my dad would clap me on the back and say, "Well, look who decided to show up." Instead, I got something entirely different. I pulled into the driveway around 2:30 in the afternoon. There were 4 cars parked out front, including Kayla's SUV and Tyler's beat-up Civic. Through the window, I could see the dining room was already set. Long tablecloth, silverware, wine glasses, the works. I even caught a glimpse of my mom walking past, carrying what looked like mashed potatoes. It was cozy, like something out of a postcard, and I felt a small smile tug at the corner of my mouth. Maybe this year would be different. I knocked twice and stepped back. The door opened. Kayla stood there in a burnt orange sweater, wine glass in hand, her mouth slightly open. Her eyes landed on me, and her expression didn't change. "Oh," she said, "just that. We weren't expecting you." I blinked. "Yeah, I figured I'd surprise you guys. Long drive, but I thought." She cut me off. "It's kind of not a good time." Then she stepped back, not to let me in, but to close the door. It didn't slam, just shut. Soft, deliberate, final. For a few seconds, I just stood there, pie in hand, the cold starting to seep through my jacket. I didn't knock again, didn't text. I just turned around, walked back to my car, and sat there. The silence hit me harder than I expected. I started the engine but didn't drive. Just sat there, trying to make sense of what had just happened. That's when my phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. They said you'd ruin the vibe. That was it. No sugarcoating. No apology. Just that. I stared at the screen, reread the message twice, then typed back. Got it. And I meant it. I really got it. This wasn't just an oversight or a misunderstanding. This was intentional, deliberate. They decided, without me, that I didn't belong, that my presence wasn't wanted, that my showing up, my existence, was a disruption. I didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't even feel angry at first. Just empty, like I'd shown up to a party I helped pay for, only to be turned away at the door. But here's the thing about family. They forget who's behind the curtain. They forget who keeps the lights on. They forget who they've come to rely on, until the day that person quietly steps back and lets them feel the absence. And by the next morning, oh, they'd feel it. Because by the time the sun rose, the utilities were cut, the credit cards were frozen, and my phone was lighting up with 47 missed calls. You ever try to rationalize something while it's happening, just to stop yourself from feeling like a complete idiot? That's what I did as I drove away from my own childhood home, pie still sitting untouched in the passenger seat. The words, "We weren't expecting you," echoing in my head like a stupid riddle. I told myself maybe Kayla didn't mean it. Maybe it was just poor timing. Maybe they didn't know how to react. Maybe. But deep down, I knew. The next few days were a blur. I didn't drive straight back to my apartment. Instead, I crashed at a motel just off the highway, ordered greasy takeout, and stared at the ceiling for hours. I didn't go on social media. Didn't answer texts, except for Sarah, who sent one more message the next morning. You okay? I didn't reply. Not yet. I wasn't angry. Not in the explosive, flip-a-table way. It was colder than that. Like something had snapped quietly in my chest, and now I could just watch. Observe. Feel nothing. That's scarier than rage, honestly. Here's what I started thinking about, somewhere around 3 a.m., with a cold burger on the nightstand and the motel AC rattling in the background. I was paying for a house I didn't live in. For people who didn't want me around. A house full of family who made the conscious choice to pretend I didn't exist. They didn't know I was coming because I didn't tell them. But they weren't surprised in the "oh my god, how great to see you" way. They were surprised like I was the stain on a white tablecloth. The uninvited ghost. And the way Kayla closed the door. That wasn't someone confused. That was someone caught. So I started rewinding everything in my head, scene by scene. And it all began to look different. Let's go back a bit. A few months ago, I got a call from my mom asking if I could temporarily increase the mortgage contribution. Dad's hours had been cut, and Kayla was still in between jobs. I didn't ask questions. I just said sure. I figured if things were tight, I could float it for a while. Then 2 weeks later, Sarah told me she saw my parents post photos from a winery tour. Apparently, Kayla had surprised them with a weekend getaway just because. I laughed at first. Thought maybe she used her own savings or something. But something didn't sit right. Then came Tyler's birthday. He got a new gaming setup, custom chair, curved monitor, the works. Sarah sent me a photo of him grinning like he'd just won the lottery. Mom was tagged in the post with the caption, "Thanks for always going above and beyond," with a heart emoji. Funny, no one mentioned me. And no one told me they were spending over $2,000 on gaming gear while asking me to up my payments. That's when I started asking myself a dangerous question. What if they're using me? I brushed it off, told myself not to be petty. But now, sitting alone with that pie sweating in its container and the motel air turning my fingers numb, the question hit harder. What if they never planned on me being family? Just a wallet with legs? The real breaking point came a few weeks later, after Thanksgiving. I'd returned home, quiet and numb. I didn't answer their calls. Let them ring out. I knew it was starting to click for them. Why the lights were flickering, why the credit cards were bouncing, why their online orders were suddenly declined. But I wasn't ready to talk. Not yet. Instead, I pulled out the old laptop I used to set up the payments years ago. I opened the folders I hadn't looked at in months. And I started going through everything. All the documents, the accounts, the transfers, the utilities. And that's when I found it. A change made 2 months ago. Not by me. Kayla had logged into the shared utilities portal, somehow guessed the password or used my old laptop, probably the same time she saw the mortgage confirmation email. She'd added her own email to the notifications, changed some of the billing addresses, set up auto-forwarding on the family email I'd created just to keep everything centralized. She'd been snooping, monitoring things. Quietly. At first, I thought maybe she just wanted oversight. But then I saw the transfers. Tiny withdrawals. $20 here. $45 there. Then larger ones. $120 to an Amazon purchase. $300 labeled consulting fee. And the biggest one, $975 to event deposit. That one made my jaw tighten. I clicked on it. Pulled the details. A venue. A damn wedding venue. Kayla was engaged? No one told me. Not my parents. Not Tyler. Not even Sarah. Though to be fair, she'd been keeping her distance lately, too. But there it was. A partial deposit for a rustic barn-style venue just outside of town. Set for June. She was using my money to pay for her wedding. That was the moment. The moment something inside me just broke. I wasn't hurt anymore. I wasn't surprised. I was done. Still, I needed to be sure. So I reached out to Sarah. Hey, was Kayla engaged? Did I miss something? She replied instantly. Yeah, since October. They announced it at Aunt Marlene's cookout. You weren't there. No one told me. Sarah, I thought they did. I waited a minute, then sent her a screenshot of the venue payment. No explanation, just the image. Her reply took 5 minutes. Sarah, oh my God. She told everyone your parents were paying for the wedding. Said she wanted to keep it in the family. Jordan, is that your money? I didn't reply. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. Then she sent one more message. Sarah, you should hear what they've been saying about you. I hesitated, then replied, tell me. She dumped it all. Screenshots, group chats, voice memos she'd secretly recorded when she realized how deep the favoritism ran. My mother telling Aunt Marlene, Jordan always acts so self-important. He needs to be taken down a notch. Kayla complaining that I owed the family for moving away. Tyler joking that I was probably too busy counting stocks to show up for anything real. And the worst, my dad. A voicemail Sarah forwarded. I sat there in silence, listening to his voice say, Jordan doesn't understand loyalty. He's all money, no heart. That was it. That was the line. All money, no heart. From the man whose mortgage I'd been covering for years. The man I once skipped a vacation for so I could help him fix the leaking roof. The man who cried when I bought him a new recliner for Christmas because his back was getting worse. The man who didn't even bother to open the door on Thanksgiving. They'd all had a choice. They chose to resent me, to use me, to build their lives around my silence, assuming I'd never push back. They were wrong, but I didn't scream, didn't send a rage-filled email. I started slow, like pulling thread from a sweater. I contacted the bank, removed myself from the joint utility accounts, closed the payment portals, switched every auto payment to pending authorization. I contacted the credit card company and flagged every suspicious charge. Then I called my lawyer. Because the house, the one I was paying off, technically, I owned 49% of it. My parents had asked me to co-sign years ago when refinancing after a rough patch. They never read the fine print. Or maybe they did. Maybe they just assumed I'd never care enough to act on it. They were about to learn otherwise. But before that, I did one final thing. I texted my mom. Hey, hope Thanksgiving was fun. We should talk sometime soon. Smiley face. She replied 5 minutes later. We were wondering where you were. We missed you. Call me. I smiled. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I didn't answer the call. Not that night. Not the next. Not the one after that. Her name flashed across my screen at least 7 times a day. Sometimes as Mom. Sometimes as Kayla. Sometimes as Dad. And even once as home. I knew what they wanted. They weren't calling to apologize. They weren't calling because they suddenly realized they'd treated me like an unwanted guest in my own story. No, they were calling because something had been taken away. The silence I gave them wasn't petty. It wasn't revenge. It was self-preservation. For the first time in a long time, I stopped pouring into a family that had made it crystal clear they saw me as a utility, not a son. And it hurt. More than I expected. See, the thing about hitting rock bottom is that it's quiet. You expect fireworks. Some dramatic collapse. But for me, it was the sound of my phone buzzing on silent while I stared at the ceiling of my apartment, wondering what I'd been trying so hard to earn from people who never really saw me. The fridge was full. My bills were paid. My job was steady. But I felt like a ghost in my own life. I started waking up late, skipping breakfast. Work calls became background noise. The drive was gone. I wasn't sleeping. Not deeply, anyway. My chest felt heavy every morning. Like grief. But it wasn't over a death. It was over the realization that the version of family I'd been chasing for nearly 30 years had never actually existed. I deleted Thanksgiving photos from previous years, archived old voicemails, moved a folder labeled Family Docs to a flash drive, and tossed it in a drawer. I even blocked Kayla for a while, just to stop myself from checking her status updates like some pathetic ex. And yeah, there were moments I questioned myself. Was I too cold? Too calculating? Was I really any better than them? I'd frozen their cards, turned off the heat, even quietly stalled their wedding planning by pulling out my portion of the gift fund I'd been contributing to without ever being invited to the engagement dinner. But the truth is, I didn't feel guilty. Not really. I felt numb. And then I felt nothing at all. Until the letter came. It was a Tuesday morning. A manila envelope, hand-delivered. Not from my parents. Not from Kayla. It was from the bank. The house, the one I'd been co-owner of, was behind on payments again. Apparently, without my contributions, things had spiraled fast. They'd missed 2 consecutive mortgage payments and defaulted on the property tax. I sat there at the kitchen counter, holding the envelope, a half-eaten bagel in front of me, and laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was ironic. I had removed myself from their lives, and the foundation literally began to crumble. I had options. I could have sold my share, transferred the deed, let it go to foreclosure, and let the bank deal with it. But then I remembered what Sarah had told me. You don't need to blow anything up. Just stop holding the ceiling up. So I did one better. I called a contractor. Hi. Yeah, I'm looking to do a property inspection. There's a place I partially own, and I want to get an estimate on repairs. Foundation, plumbing, everything. He agreed to meet me on site the next week. And just like that, I started moving. Not with rage. Not with bitterness. Just motion. One step at a time. That same day, I went to the gym. First time in months. Didn't do much. Just walked the treadmill for 20 minutes. But I left feeling a little more in my body. A little more alive. I showered when I got home, then made real food. Not frozen. Not takeout. Just chicken and rice and broccoli, like I used to when I was trying to fix myself the first time I moved out at 19. The next morning, I dug out my old notebooks. The ones with scribbled ideas for side projects. Business plans. Passive income streams I'd always said I'd look into someday. One idea jumped out. An app I'd once sketched out for real estate agents to track local listings and market trends in real time. Nothing groundbreaking, but I'd always believed in it. I opened a fresh document. Started mapping it out again. I told no one. I didn't post anything. Didn't make a dramatic comeback. I just worked. Quietly. Consistently. And with every step, I felt the weight loosen. My body felt stronger. My apartment felt warmer. I started smiling more, even if it was just at dumb cat videos or the barista who remembered my name at the corner cafe. Meanwhile, the family group chat was unraveling. Sarah sent me screenshots now and then. My mom asking, has anyone heard from Jordan? Kayla writing, he's being dramatic. Tyler trying to organize a family meeting that no one showed up to. It was like watching a play I'd been written out of, and honestly, it was peaceful. Until Christmas came. That was the test. It had always been my thing. Every Christmas, I'd send out gifts. Nothing extravagant. Just thoughtful. A set of high-end knives for my dad when he took up cooking. An engraved necklace for Mom when she lost her sister. A travel pillow for Kayla when she landed that short-lived marketing gig that lasted 3 weeks. But this year, nothing. I didn't even text. And they noticed. I got a long email from my mom on Christmas Eve. It started with, "We miss you," and ended with, "I hope you can find it in your heart to come back to the family." In between were sentences like, "You've always been so cold," and "Kayla didn't mean what she said," and "Family is complicated." I read it twice. Closed it. Didn't respond. Because I was done playing the part of the ever-forgiving son. The ATM with a smile. The brother who never needed anything. So why give him anything? I wasn't angry anymore. I'd simply outgrown the version of myself who needed their validation. Instead, I poured my energy into building. The app prototype was coming together. I found a freelance developer, negotiated a solid rate, and set up an LLC. I reconnected with a friend from college who had connections in a brokerage firm, and he agreed to test the beta version with his team. I was working 12-hour days again, but this time, it was for me. My life got fuller. Not with people, necessarily, but with purpose. I even went on a couple dates. Nothing serious. Just real conversations with people who didn't know me as the reliable son, or the rich one, or the disappointment. Just Jordan, the guy who liked late-night walks and overcooked spaghetti. And then, in late January, I got the call. Not a text, not an email, a real call. It was Dad. I stared at the screen for a full minute before answering. Hello. His voice cracked. Hey, it's me. I said nothing. We're in a bit of a situation. I thought maybe we could talk. I waited. He sighed. We're behind. On the house. And your mom's been sick. Not serious. Just stress, I think. It's been hard without your help. I stayed silent. I know you're upset. You have every right. I just thought, maybe we could meet. Talk this out. As a family. Family. That word didn't land the same way anymore. It didn't sting. It just felt tired. I'll think about it, I said. Thank you, he whispered. Really? Thank you. But I wasn't doing it for him. I wasn't doing it to make peace or play hero or rescue anyone. I just wanted to see something. To look my father in the eye and see if there was anything real behind the voice that once said I was all money, no heart. And what happened in that meeting changed everything. Because what I found out next made me realize the betrayal went even deeper than I thought. And the person who had stabbed me hardest wasn't Kayla. It was someone I trusted even more. I met my father at a diner halfway between my place and theirs. One of those old school places with vinyl booths and chipped coffee mugs that always smelled like burnt toast and pine cleaner. He was already seated when I walked in, staring into a black coffee like it held the answers. He looked older than I remembered. Not just tired, faded. Like the version of him I used to chase approval from had shrunk behind years of denial and pride. I slid into the booth across from him and didn't say a word. He looked up, startled for a second, like he didn't believe I'd actually come. Jordan, he said, with a nervous little smile. Thanks for meeting me. I nodded. You said it was important. He took a breath. We're losing the house. Straight to it. No sugarcoating. I know, I said calmly. He blinked. You know? I tapped the folder I'd brought with me. Inside, updated mortgage statements, property taxes, emails from the bank, and a full accounting of every dollar I'd paid on their behalf over the past 4 years. I've been managing the payments since 2020. I co-own the house, remember? He gave a half-hearted chuckle. Yeah, I remember. We just thought. You thought I'd keep paying forever. He didn't argue. Just looked down at his coffee, swirling it absent-mindedly. It wasn't personal, he muttered. I raised an eyebrow. You sure? Because leaving me out of Thanksgiving, using my money for Kayla's wedding, calling me all money, no heart, those feel pretty personal. He looked like I'd slapped him. Good. She told us she had your blessing, he mumbled. Said you offered to help with the venue. That stopped me cold. What? Kayla. She said you offered. That it was your way of contributing. I didn't speak for a moment. That was the moment everything clicked. The missing pieces, the confusion, the timing. Kayla had been spinning a narrative this whole time. She had told them I was in on the wedding plans, that I had offered to pay for the deposit, that I was too busy to show up for Thanksgiving, but that I'd sent my love. She hadn't just manipulated the accounts. She'd rewritten me out of the family and inserted a fictional version of me, distant but generous, cold but useful. No wonder no one reached out when I didn't show up. No wonder no one asked questions. She'd already fed them the script. I sat back, stunned. She lied to you, I said finally. She's been lying for months. He looked genuinely shocked, but that didn't move me anymore. She also accessed my accounts, used my name, my passwords. Do you understand what that means? His face turned pale. I didn't know. Of course you didn't. Because you never asked. There was a long silence. Then he whispered, what are you going to do? And that, right there, was the question. Because for the first time, I had clarity. I had proof. I had leverage. And I wasn't going to waste it. I left the diner without finishing my coffee, told him I'd be in touch. No promises. No reassurances. Just silence. And then I got to work. Step 1 was the legal angle. I called my lawyer, Marissa, sharp as nails and twice as fast, and laid everything out. Co-ownership, unauthorized use of funds, password tampering, property fraud. I don't want to press charges, I told her. Not yet, but I want options. She said, you've got plenty. We can freeze the asset, file a claim for reimbursement, or, if you're feeling spicy, we can petition to force a sale. Would that affect their credit? Oh, absolutely. I paused, then said, let's draft everything. Quietly, she started the paperwork that night. Step 2, gather allies. I called Sarah. You were right, I said. She lied to all of them. There was a beat of silence. Then she said, I knew something felt off. I explained the meeting, the discovery, the twist. She was livid on my behalf. She told everyone you were just too busy with your business stuff, that you wanted to help from a distance. Then she helped herself to my accounts. Sarah's voice dropped. Jordan, if you need me to back you up, whatever you're planning, I'm in. Thanks. I'll let you know. I wasn't ready to drag Sarah into the fire just yet, but it helped to know someone still had my back. Step 3, information. I logged into the shared family email again. Kayla hadn't changed the password since the last time she accessed it. Rookie move. Inside were dozens of wedding planning threads, venue updates, florists, registries. And then I found the guest list. Not only was I not on it, but there were notes next to certain names. Color-coded. Next to Sarah, it said, watch her. Close to Jordan. Next to a mutual cousin. We'll ask about finances. Avoid. It wasn't a wedding plan. It was an operation. A curated event designed to showcase Kayla's version of our family. One where I was a footnote. A silent sponsor. A myth. And that's when I made my decision. If she wanted a perfect wedding, I'd give her one. But not the way she imagined. I didn't stop her planning. I didn't call the vendors. I didn't cancel anything. I let her think she'd won. That the money was still flowing. That I was still the quiet benefactor in the shadows. And while she spent hours agonizing over linen colors and signature cocktails, I focused on my app. I launched a closed beta with 5 brokerages. Built out a small team. Hired a designer. Rebranded. By the time March rolled around, we had traction. Real traction. I got offers. Investment interest. Even a soft acquisition pitch from a regional firm. For the first time, I was the center of my own story. No family drama. No guilt. Just building something that mattered to me. But I hadn't forgotten. And I hadn't forgiven. By April, the house was officially in default. The bank had sent final notices. Kayla and my parents were scrambling. I watched it all unfold through Sarah's updates and the occasional public Facebook post from my mom. Always vague, but dripping with desperation. Prayers appreciated during this tough time. Family is everything, even when things get hard. Translation: the gravy train stopped, and we don't know how to adult. Then, in late April, Kayla posted a countdown. 40 days to forever #Mrs. 40 days. That gave me just enough time. I met with Marissa again. I want to trigger the clause, I said. She looked up from her laptop. Are you sure? Once we initiate, they'll know. No more hiding in the shadows. I nodded. It's time. She smiled. Then let's remind them who's been holding the walls up. We filed a petition action, legal code for, we co-own this house and I want my share, even if that means forcing a sale. The timing? Deliberate. The court date? 2 days before the wedding. I sent the notice via certified mail. Watched the tracking update until it said delivered. And then, I waited. The silence was delicious. No calls. No texts. Just the quiet before the storm. But I wasn't done. I had one more card to play. And it would land the day before the ceremony. Because if Kayla thought she could write me out of the story, she was about to find out. I just picked up the pen. The day before the wedding, around 8:15 in the morning, I was sitting at my apartment desk, coffee in hand, watching the email I'd scheduled hit Kayla's inbox. It was simple, almost polite. A single PDF attached. No passive-aggressive subject lines. No paragraphs of explanation. Just, please review before tomorrow. Inside the PDF was a formal notice. Co-owner has initiated a forced sale due to unpaid mortgage, unauthorized financial activity, and breach of joint ownership agreement. Pending court action may impact property use, occupancy, and event hosting. I didn't need to write anything else. The document did all the talking. 10 minutes later, my phone started buzzing. Call from mom. Call from dad. Call from home. Then Kayla. 6 missed calls in 3 minutes. I didn't pick up a single one. Around noon, I got a text from Sarah. What did you do? They're losing it. I smiled, took another sip of coffee, and wrote back. Just finally stepped out of the background. By 3 p.m., photos were circulating in the family group chat. Screenshots Sarah quietly forwarded to me showed my parents and siblings sitting at the dining table, the same table I'd stared at through the window on Thanksgiving. Except now they weren't sipping wine and laughing. They were surrounded by paperwork, court dates, bank letters, mortgage statements. The fallout was immediate. The house they thought they controlled, the one they excluded me from, the one built on the assumption that I would always pay, always stay quiet, always shoulder their mistakes, wasn't theirs to wield anymore. They'd poked the quiet one too many times. But the real storm wouldn't hit until the next morning. Wedding day. I woke up early, not for the ceremony. Of course I wasn't invited. But because the app I'd been building for months had a pitch meeting with one of the biggest real estate platforms in the region. I'd hoped it would go well, but I wasn't expecting what actually happened. They wanted to invest. And not a little. A lot. The kind of offer that makes your hands shake and your voice crack on the phone. The kind of offer that puts you on the map. I signed an NDA, shook hands with the partners, stepped outside into the sunlight, and felt something loosen in my chest that had been tight for years. By 11 a.m., I was officially an entrepreneur with funding, traction, momentum, and a future that didn't include being my family's emergency lifeline. I got lunch with a friend, walked around the city, and let the satisfaction settle in slowly, calmly, quietly. But meanwhile, back in my hometown, everything was falling apart. The venue calls. Around 2 p.m., roughly the time guests should have been arriving at the picturesque barn venue Kayla was so obsessed with, the owner of the property called my parents. Someone, Kayla, obviously, had tried to run the final payment using the family credit card. Declined. Then she tried her personal card. Declined. Then she tried my name. Denied due to fraud alert. She didn't understand that I'd already flagged every account she had touched and every attempt to impersonate me. By the time Mom arrived to explain the misunderstanding, the venue manager calmly told her the event could not proceed without full payment, and that due to the pending legal action on the primary payer's home, they were no longer comfortable hosting the wedding at all. It wasn't just money. It was liability. Kayla had used a house she didn't own to secure wedding services she couldn't pay for. And now, legally, the venue couldn't touch it. Guests were standing in the parking lot when the cancellation was announced. People were crying. Some yelling. The groom's family was furious. My father was white as a sheet. Mom kept trying to whisper excuses. Tyler was pacing like he was about to punch something. And Kayla? Kayla had a meltdown so public that 3 different relatives filmed it. I didn't watch the full video, but Sarah sent a clip. My sister standing in the driveway, screaming, "It's Jordan. He did this. He ruins everything." Funny how I had ruined an event I wasn't invited to. But here's the truth. I didn't ruin anything. I just stopped funding it. They ruined it by building a fantasy wedding on the foundation of someone they had pushed out the front door. The face OFF. That evening, after the wedding I finally answered a call. It was my father. His voice was tiny, defeated. "Jordan," he said quietly, "please, come to the house. We need to talk." I almost declined. Almost. But something in me, not sympathy, just a sense of ending, decided it was time to close this chapter face to face. When I pulled into the driveway, the house was dark. Half the power had been cut off after months of unpaid bills. The porch light flickered weakly as my dad opened the door. My mother stood behind him, eyes puffy, but not from guilt, from embarrassment. Kayla was sitting at the dining table, still in her ruined hairdo, mascara dried in streaks. Tyler hovered near her like a scolded dog. I walked in. No one spoke. So I did. "What do you want from me?" My father swallowed hard. "We made mistakes." My mother added softly, "We didn't know what Kayla was doing." I looked at Kayla. "You want to explain? Or should I?" She glared at me. "You blindsided us." "No," I said evenly. "I just stopped being your safety net. There's a difference." She jumped up from her chair. "You could have talked to us. You could have worked with us. You didn't have to go nuclear." "You shut the door in my face," I said. "On Thanksgiving. At the house I pay for. Then you stole from me. Lied about me. Cut me out of every decision. You didn't think this was coming." My father finally whispered, "We need help, son." And that's when it happened. I didn't break down. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just felt a kind of clarity I'd never had before. "I'm selling my share of the house," I said calmly. "The court date stands. You'll need to figure out your portion on your own." My mother gasped. "Jordan, this is our home." "No," I corrected. "It was supposed to be ours. Then you decided it wasn't mine." Kayla's voice cracked. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing," I said. "I don't want anything from any of you anymore." For the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to earn their approval, affection, or gratitude. I was walking away with my dignity intact. I turned toward the door. My father whispered, "If you leave, that's it. We may never fix this." I paused in the doorway, then said the truest thing I've ever spoken. I didn't break it, and I stepped out. 6 months later, my app grew faster than I expected. Partnerships, press write-ups, a second round of funding. I hired a team, moved into a nicer apartment, started traveling, started living. Sarah and I stayed close. She was the only family member who didn't vanish into the fog of guilt and silence. As for my parents, they moved into a smaller rental after the court-ordered sale. My father got a part-time job. My mother babysits for extra cash. They send the occasional stiff, awkward holiday card. I read them. I don't reply. Tyler unfriended me on everything. And Kayla? Her wedding never got rescheduled. Her fiancé left 2 months after the fallout. Apparently, the financial chaos and her habit of blaming everyone but herself scared him off. She posts passive-aggressive quotes on social media now about fake people and family betrayal. I don't engage. I don't need to. Because my life, for the first time in years, is mine. Built by me. Funded by me. Defined by me. No guilt. No shadows. No doors slammed in my face. Just forward. Always forward. And every now and then, when I'm driving late at night with the windows down, I think about the moment Kayla closed that door on Thanksgiving. The moment everything changed. And I can't help but smile. Because in the end, they taught me exactly who they were. And I finally chose who I would be. The final line, the one that closes this chapter of Jordan's life, came to me months later when someone asked why I don't talk to my family anymore. I just said, they lost access to me the same way they lost access to everything else, by assuming I'd always be there. And that was the end.